Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back. Doo-doo. I like opening it up like that. But hi, my name is Sharifa, and this is the New Year Review, where we talk about books, movies, planning, journaling, all the things. Today, I come to you with a sort of a recommendation, but also a mandatory item or items that every African American household should have. We are talking about Juneteenth Rex and Juneteenth must 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 buy books. I'm sorry, and I'm not going to edit that out. So let's talk. Let's get into it. So I tried to keep this list down to 10 books because I don't want to give too many recommendations that you're not able to actually look into it for yourself. 10 was like a comfortable number. So, in saying that, I do have a caveat. I do have two books that I am going to recommend um, as a must have or a must read for every household in America. Okay, so let's get to the first one. The first one is a current one. This book was published, I think I want to say in 2023. This came in after the Black Lives Matter marches regarding the murder of a African American male named George Floyd. He was murdered on camera by a police officer. And I think when the other part of America saw the treatment of Black bodies, um, you had a lot of young people come out and people just in general protesting the brutality of police brutality amongst Black bodies. And I was glad to see that. So it led us to this point where our current administration or current president in the United States is thinking about, or it's been alluded to, that he will be giving Derek Chauvin, the police officer who murdered George Floyd, he may be giving him a pardon. So, why do you think he wants to do that? We're not going to discuss that in this video, but I will make recommend a book for you to read. Okay. And I will hit on that topic in another video. So stay tuned and subscribe. His name was George Floyd. And this was published. Oh, and this is how you know I need my glasses. This was published by Robert Samuels and Toluse. I can't remember. I can't pronounce his name, and I'm not going to. But I will give you a look. Now, this one won a Pulitzer. This is a very insightful read. It just talks about George Floyd's life in its entirety, how he was a prolific voice in the community in terms of advocating for young men, young children. And unfortunately, like most inner city youth are exposed to, the downfalls and the pits of drugs infiltrated in our neighborhoods. But I do have another book that talks about the history of that too, but that's not for this video. But I do recommend every person who cares about Black lives, democracy, read this book. And it's on audio too, just in case you are the type of person that likes to move around while you're listening to audiobook. Me. Okay. So, and then I have two books that I do recommend every single home should have. First is the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. I was fortunate enough to find this one in a thrift store. And I mean, I keep this in my purse now. I have to keep it in my purse. I have to travel with it, and it's very useful. Although I do have several copies of various versions of or various prints of the Declaration of Independence in the United States Constitution. I think every Black household should have that. I think that every family should sit down and understand the Constitution, understand their rights. And yeah, so this is a good one to have. The other one that I'm recommending, every Black household or every person who cares about Black lives, because I had to differentiate the two. It is the 1619 Project, Nikole Hannah Jones. This is probably one of the most controversial current books that's out right now, published by a Black author. Now, this book is a combination of short stories, short essays, and poems, but they're told in chronological order, based on events that happened from 1619 to the current day. So I recommend every household have a copy of this. Also, there is a children's version of this book. I do have it, but I don't have it right now with me with all the books around me. But let me get to these recommendations because I do want to make them quick, and I want to get these books out before Juneteenth. And every book that I've gave a recommendation for, they will be in the description below. Also, I will post a link of my 2025 Black History reads. I will link that video also if you're interested. But for now, the first book that I'm recommending is on Juneteenth. Annette Gordon Reed. This will be my third year reading this book. And this year, this is a summer read for me and my son. This is highly recommended if you really want to know more about Juneteenth. It opens the story in Texas. And Texas was the last state to be liberated. That's why we initially celebrate that date on Juneteenth, because Texas was the last state to not even abolish slavery, but to notify slaves that they were free. So this tells a great story of the great history, and it's short too. It's a short read of why Juneteenth is important. The next one, I want to kind of tell a story in chronological order. So these books that I'm going to give, they are in order. And I know I'm not going to get to a lot of great books because there are a lot of great books to tell the story of African Americans, but I want to stick to this one, and maybe in a future video we can explore some more. A book that I do recommend, Before the Mayflower, A History of the Negro in America, 1619 from 1962. And this is by Lerone Bennet. Lerone Bennet Jr. Great book. I recommend that. And in order, The Rise of a Nation, John Brown, who was an abolitionist, Frederick Douglass, and the Making of a Free Country by William S. King. This tells the story of how these two men came together and construct and organize individuals in the fight for freedom for African slaves. The half has never been told. Slavery and the Making of American Capitalism. If Black people, if you want to know, anyone wants to know, not just Black people, if anyone wants to know the contributions of Black people to America and how we were the engineers of how society should run and structure, I highly recommend that you read this book. It really basically explains how, and for the most part, most of us know this, how Africans really built the empire and the infrastructure for capitalism. For not us, but everybody else. This history right here is a interesting one. I'm gonna do that one last. Now I want to talk about the migration, and I have a few books on migrations of slaves and free blacks and just people period, black people period, and how they migrated from the south to the north for better opportunities, but was met with the same hostility and the racism and the prejudice from the south. This is a great read. A warmth from the warmth of other suns, the epic story of American Great Migration. Isabel Wilkerson. She's probably one of my favorite authors of all time. She has another book. I'm not going to recommend it here. Let's stick on a recommendation. But if you Google her name, she has 3 books out. I think 3 now. If she have another one, I don't know of it. But this was actually a citywide read in my city. Yeah, this is a great book, and it talks about the migration of, like I said, of African Americans from the south to go to west, further east, and further north. And it talks about, like I said, how they were met with the backlash of other injustices. You got my cord? Please give me the cord, child. Leave it on the couch. All right. So the next one that I have for us is Waging a Good War, the military history of the Civil Rights Movement, 1954 to through 1968. So I think this is so imperative for this time because recently the United States held a march for no kings, no kings march, and so it was a peaceful march. It was a jubilee. I mean, it was like celebratory, and you just had people out there marching for freedom, marching for their rights, and I love seeing that. Recently, the president of the United States wants to try to figure out, like, because black people are really not fully engaging in these marches because we already know the United States have a history of attacking black bodies. If it's not physically, it's emotionally, it's mentally, it's financially. Read The Black Tax, and I'm not going to talk about that book here, but there's a reason why there's not a slew of black people participating in a lot of these marches. And so a lot of people are saying, so where are the black folks? They should be upset. Well, majority of us cast our votes for the person who we thought that exemplifies democracy for all. And so, and that book is Waging a Good War. Now, we're going to finish up this book haul, but let's get to the next one. This one is, I think that it's imperative because it addresses a lot of the arguments we have or that were made for black equality and civil rights, and a lot of that came through writings. You have our prolific authors, past and present. One would be James Baldwin, who in his writings, he really do talk about the black experience. There is a book called The Fire Upon Us, and it really goes into the workings of this big debate that who was it? James Baldwin and William F. Buckley Jr. If I have an opportunity, I will probably try to put the debate in the description below because I think it's on YouTube. So I'll try to find it and put it below. But if I forget, I hope I don't. It's definitely on YouTube. Just pull up Baldwin Buckley debates, something like that. However, this book right here goes into explaining what catapult that debate and the actually excellent points that William Baldwin addresses about Black lives and how, you know, America, since its inception, before its inception, you know, has basically abused and mistreated Black people in the Black body. So I recommend this as a good read. Okay, I have to apologize because I had to jump off and grab my food and jump back on. But you would know that unless I said something. So there we go. The beauty of the pause. So let me finish with these recommendations. I have two more left. Now the next one is from Michael Eric Dyson, Performing Blackness in America, um, Entertaining Race. This book right here, I'm gonna be honest with you, it's not big. However, if you've ever read anything from Michael Eric Dyson, I have the Michael Eric Dyson reader, right? Although his readings are, oh my goodness, they hit the heart of, you know, the Black experience. And this book right here elaborates on that. It really talks about the politics and, you know, how the politics and the exposure of the Black body is, you know, played out through media, our rules, our laws, everything that's, you know, that has been actually taken from Black culture and made it into entertainment. So I have experiences, you know, when someone may meet me and they may say, wow, you know, as if Black people are, I would say, you know, we are not educated and knowledgeable enough. But I think after the world saw the first Black president, and they begin to see, oh, they're not as ignorant as we think. Now, I'm not saying this is everybody, but majority of people who are not amongst Black people on a regular basis, they would know nothing about black lives besides probably what they read in the newspaper or what they've seen on television. So, but that's not living, you know, the experience of America, because the truth of reality is that Black people, in order to maintain anything, I would say, in terms of education, in terms of employment, we have to intermingle with other cultures, race people. It doesn't, you know, we have long addressed our, how can we say, just being the only one in the room that looks, you know, the only one in the room. So we've had to deal with that most of our lives. If you've been raised these last 60 plus years, you understand the experience, because once segregation was forced upon white America, you know, there was this decline of Black people really continuing the struggle for Black liberation. And I'm not talking about liberation for all, because after the civil rights movement, how the entertainment used Black people, going from house mammies to the criminal on TV to, you know, the jigaboo that's dancing for the white folks, you know, it turns around and attacks our hip hop community, which everyone has made billions and billions and billions of dollars off of our lived experiences. We're not going to get into that in this video because I'm already going over it. So I encourage you to get this book, Entertaining Race, Michael Eric Dyson. It is I want to say it's a heavy read, but these are just one of those books. If you're not used to, how can I say, it's not a scholarly work. However, it can be considered a scholarly work. His rhythm of language He if you've heard this man talk, he writes how he talks. No periods. No, I'm just joking. But the book itself is a great read, and if you ever get a chance to read it, and it tells you the juxtapose between, you know, how hip hop and politics have played out in Black lives, and how the Black experience has been actually exploited through the media and politics and other means. This is the book that you would want to read, and I highly recommend it. Now, I think I have all my books that I am going to share, but this is one book that I really want to put down as a recommended read. Margaret Water. I'm sorry, Margaret Walker. Jubilee. And this book I've had for years. And I've listened to the audiobook version of this, but I've never sat down and physically read the text. And the version that I listened on the audiobook, it wasn't in abridged. So I'm assuming that I got the full experience of, you know, like the entire book. But I do encourage you to read it. It really talks about the Reconstruction era. And this is based to fiction. This is fictional. However, it brings to light a lot of historical experiences through the Reconstruction era of United States. Margaret Walker, great book. I hope you get an opportunity. If you don't want to read all the other, you know, I would say not so much heavy reads, but informational reads. And if you just want to unwind in the book, this is a great place to start. Now, in saying that, I want to say that, you know, this list right here is definitely something that I would recommend to anybody, anyone who want to learn anything about Black history and the Black experience. Juneteenth is a day for celebration for all. Now, although June 19th, 1865 was the day, the landmark day where all slaves were free, we still had people enslaved. And I want to say this correctly, and I may have to go back and do some research. In 1866, August 4th, the last state to release their slaves was Oklahoma. And this came from our Indian tribes, where they did not want to let their slaves go. They had to negotiate with the United States government. And so outside of, you know, the Emancipation Proclamation, outside of other states, you know, Confederate and Union, you know, releasing or, you know, like understanding that slavery was over and Black or Africans, they weren't chattel anymore, you still had one state. Yes. And so we're going to follow up with this video with more information on that particular, because I was trying to find a book on it, and I'm quite sure there are books on it, but if you find out any more information about it, can you please leave it down below? But this video is long and drawn out. I want to say happy Juneteenth to anyone, to all my Black people, wherever you are, and anybody who's joined in on the celebration. It is a celebration to highlight our ancestors' struggle. It is a celebration of Black life. It is a celebration of understanding Black history, where we came from, where we are now, and where we are heading towards the future. And so, in saying that, take this time out, even if it's just for, you know, a half an hour, right? To thank the ancestors. Thank, you know, our civil rights activists who have gotten us this far. Thank the abolitionists, Black and white, you know, who have fought and died, you know, for our freedoms. And thank for our future generations, because we have a lot of young trailblazers out there who are lighting the path, you know, and continuing this struggle for Black freedom and equality in the United States. So wherever this video reach you in the world, I want to say happy Juneteenth. And if you're interested in more content like this, please click this. Let me see if I get this right. Please subscribe, press like, and share this with a friend. Do it in that order. And if you do it in that order, and if you've gotten this far, I know you'll be back soon. Until then, people, bye-bye.